Hello and welcome to this xparticles tutorial. This tutorial is focused on creating cloth simulations using the xpDynamics tag. Let's dive in and learn how to create cool effects. To explain in a simple way the xpDynamic tag, we just create a cube here in objects and control and drag. We have the second one and add some segment to the second one. 10, 10, 10, this can be good for the start. And now we change this to the polygon objects. For this, turn it, then you just click on the C on the keyboard and we just go to the edge mode, Ctrl A and Shift C, edge to a spline. Just double click and here we have our cube turned to spline. So we have now a solid and a wireframe object, very simple, to demonstrate and to show how to xpDynamic is working, xpDynamic tag. Now we add on, we select both of them object and right click and extension stadium tag. We have here xpDynamics, just both of them have now. And if you play, you see nothing is happening, but it created small particles on surface and on the points and segments. And this is now how the changes can happen, because we don't have nothing here, we don't have any dynamics, and we can affect the particles, and the particles, by adding the dynamics, particles will affect the segment and the surfaces. But now we don't have any forces. This is the reason nothing is changing here. If you click on dynamic tag here, you can see the other parameters here, like properties, distribution. You can change it to surface, vertex and meet or vertex, and you have here the rigidity and also parameter properties like emitter. But the most things that we are using here, and the most important, is rigidity, and that you can play with it from 100 to 0. And we just turn it to 0 and play again, and still nothing happening. Then we need to add a force. For this we can go, for example, and go to the particles. You can use dynamics or modifiers, and motion modifiers we will use turbulence, xp turbulence. And when you play now, you see the changes is happening, and you can select it now, the rigidity. If you put it on 100 and play again, you see the whole object is happening, and because we select it as a 100% rigid, and you can now, when you make it less and less, and you see slowly the changes are happening until you make it really 1%. And you can see it's still a little bit change is happening, and now we make it 0, and the full power of the turbulence will affect our segment and our object. But as you can see, this it's totally exploded our segment, but we want a little bit keep the shape of the keep the shape of the cube, and the turbulence affect the surface and keep the structure. For this we have a solution on xp tag. If you select it here, close to the tag is constraint and structure constraint, you click on it, and when you play again, and you see it's holding the structure and in a better way. And we have now shape constraints, and you can click on it, and will be another options for this. But we stay on deactivate the shape, and we stay on constraint. And for this to keep it our shape like still better, we can add another dynamic in xparticle, and we use xp constraint. And when we play now, still nothing happening because we don't have any constraint in connection. We can connect at birth, and now is what we are looking for. Our object and our shape, our cube shape, stay together, and we also have the turbulence effect on it. But as you can see, our cube is 100%, it's nothing changed, but our spline is totally turning. Why? Because if we go on our cube tag, and you see our rigidity on our cube is 100, and now you need only change it to 0, and you can see now also same happening to our cube surfaces. And this is the reason we don't want the shape be totally destroyed, and we just go to the constraint and structure and the shape and click on it. And to have a better form of the cube, you need to add more segment on it, because this effect working very good with the more surface you have, the better will be. And now we can see also change easily our box or our cube to the cloth effect, or very easily simulated, and you can have both of it like on a wireframe or on a solid surfaces. You can create really a lot of cool effect with it. Just was this basic introduction of xpDynamic tag. Now let's go to the other properties of the xpDynamic tags. Is emitter. Now, as you can see here, we don't have any control on the size of the color or anything that related to particles. They are only attached and they are only there, and you cannot do nothing. You cannot change. You cannot make it bigger or change or make any change on it. So you should go for this to the properties, and you can select add an emitter, and as soon as you click on add an emitter, you have an XP emitter here created. And here you have all the options to control. For example, you can go to display and change it to the particles to the circle, and also the color to the gradient random. And when you play, you can see the particles in a random colors on our cube, and we can change it to anything that any shape that we wanted to see in preview. And also for the second one, you can also do this, add a second emitter. Then we have two different emitter for different objects, and here you can change the color in display, that we can see the one in red, or selected another shape, for example a circle or a circle fill. And this is also the very basics of creating cloth simulations without using any cloth effects, only with the one xparticle tag. After talking about the very basic of xpDynamic tags, and now we talk about another way of creating cloth simulation using xpCloth effects. Let's jump to it. For this we need just a simple plane NG or NA, ND. We can see the number of segments. The number of segments is very important because make it more smooth or cloth simulation. You can start with like 50. And for creating cloth effects, we go to Insidium and xpParticle Dynamics, xpCloth effects. Just create cloth. But before, our plane should be selected and just click on it. And here we see that he created for us like a default the constraint, gravity emitter, and a cloth modifier. And when you open this on a plane, you see that xpCloth deformer and a tag here which is cloth tag. And if you play, suddenly, because we have the only modifier is the xp gravity and will affect all of our plane, just deactivate it and play again, and you can see here our plane created the particle on it. And because we don't have any motions and nothing happening here, just we can go again to the Insidium xparticle and dynamics and use xpFlowfield to add some motion on it. When we have this dynamic xpFlowfield, and when we play and it's the default random, and you can see our clothes start have the random movement. And all of the particles you can see here are affecting the surface of the plane. And this will give us a lot of freedom for the simulating and animation. So let's deactivate the random, and here to the add, you can add along the splines, random, shader, target, twist spline, and you have a lot of flexibility. And let's just try the along the spline. And for the along the spline, we need a spline for a simple, for example, I will choose a simple rectangle. And now if you play, nothing is happening, because in along the spline objects we should define and drag and put it here, the rectangle. And as you can see here, the shape of the flow field is going to the direction of our rectangle. And if you can play with the rectangular shape, and you can see also in real time changing, which is very cool, and you can have the idea of the direction of the forces on our plane. And if you select the xpFlowfield and go to the display, you can change the trail to arrows or to the lines for a better view, or you can change the mode from XY to YZ, or like the surface as it is. But I will back to the trails that I can see better how it will affect our plane surface, the xpFlowfield. That's what it was on the display. We go to the object, and here we have a few options. For example, we have the follow active, and you can see the difference if the follow is activated. It's very smooth and just part of it, and we deactivate the follow, and you can see this created a very cool simulation. It looks like it's packing the surface or the clothes, or can be a paper or anything for your work. And here you can control the strength, how strong should be. For example, if it's 0, nothing is happening. If you make it 20%, you will have another simulation. And if you make it 100, it will be way stronger. And the field, if you choose the direction and you play again, there's nothing happening. For this you need to select the velocity to affect the speed of particles, because to understand it better is that you should know this, all of this flow field dynamics affect particles, and the particles affect the surface, and this is reason we need the field affect the velocity and the speed of particles. And when the particles moving in the direction of the spline that we define, will create such a cool simulations. And let's try now use another shape, and for example a flower. I will choose it in XZ. I have better view for me, and if I go to the xpFlowfield and I delete the rectangle, I don't want it, I want to see this flower, and just drag it here to the object. And you can see in preview, if I deactivate it, it shows the kind of that I can see that will be around like the center movement. This is what we wanted to see on the cloth simulation. And if back again and just click and play, created beautifully new dynamic movement for our surface. And here if we back to the plane, as you can see, the segments are 50-50, and the more segment you give, the more smooth and more beautiful will be here. And for this kind of distortion of the surface, you just can come here and click the Fong angle and play with it until it's gone. And adding more segment, of course, make it more smooth, but you should also be here careful. The more segment you add, the more slow will be and the more heavy your 3D scene. But as you can see here now, it's a very beautifully created a thermal effect. It's like on our closed surface, very smooth, very easily created, very controllable. And you can also come here, add, for example, a subdivision surface and make it still more smooth, your surface, and creating more segment on it, as you can see here. And if I deactivate and activate it, and then you can see it's like a more smooth, more clothy look and more realistic. Just make it NA, and we back again to our particle and cloth simulation at the same time. And if you want to add some, as you can see, we don't have any thickness here. You can easily come and use closed surface and add to the closed surface, and you can add a thickness, for example 2, and you can add to your surface a very beautiful and smooth thickness, and everything works perfectly. A little bit make your scene more heavy and will play more slowly, but you can make always a preview for it for yourself to see how it will look like. For this you can only just come here and select and make a preview. Just say I want all frame be just a preview and just click. Then you can see a real-time movement of the cloth simulations in a real speed. And as you can see, with a very simple, very simple, only a flower spline, we created such a complicated effect. Now we jump back again to xpDynamic tag and see how to create some simple and cool countdown effect with it. Now we just need to go to the text, and here in the object write number 3 and choose the right font that you like the most, and I recommend it is a black or a bold font that you have more surfaces for our simulation. I've already created the text and I've chosen the font that I want, and here only you can make it the depth a little bit more depth. You can give the, for example, 40, and now we should add more a segment to the text. If you select NG, and you can see here we have the segments, but on the surface we don't have any. NB, you can see the both at the same time, and we just need to add more segment here, more segment on the surface. For this we can go to the cap, and caps type we change it to regular, and we can add it. You can see here, for example, like only 4. And also on the object here we have subdivision, and you can also add the new, for example, 10. And you can see here we have the text with subdivision, but the segments are not in really perfectly matches with the text, and this is the reason you can come here and change it to uniform or national or adaptive, and we choose the uniform, and will be a little bit more more segment on it. And the last thing that we can do is just go and remesh the text. Then will be everything equally perfectly on it. As you can see now, everything looks very more beautiful and more organized. And now we have the text with the, because we want to animate all of these segments and give the close effect on only the segments. So what we should do is just turn this to the polygon object and come here and select the edges and Shift C and write here edge to spline, then click, and we have here the spline version or our text, or here is number 3. And now we have the wireframe of our text, and we need now add to dynamic on it. Just go right click and extension and Cydium tag, and we'll use xpDynamics. And when we play, it's nothing happening. Oh, sorry, I put this on this remesh and I remove it and I put it on spline. And when you play, you see nothing happening, but we have particles on it, like the beginning of the tutorial. Here we have only particles, but we don't have any forces. And for this, we will go again to the rigidity. We change it to 0 because we want forces or dynamics to power part all of these segments. And now we need some dynamics effects. For this, we can go in Cydium, particles, and dynamics, and xpFlowfield. And if you use xpFlowfield here, just put it at the organize it with the middle center of the objects, and when you play, now you see still nothing happening because our field is on random and the field is on direction, but we want on the speed of particles. And if you change the velocity, then the change is quickly happening. And as you can see, when we play again, this is destroying and do not keep the shape of the number. Just come here again, constraint, and structure constraint, we keep it. And let's see, now much better. And we can go to xpFlowfield and for example, put the number 10 to 2%. And you can see now it's more smooth and more slowly the change is happening and it's not exploding. And for this, we remove the random effects, and I will use the remesh as a surface because we can use another from here, add, it's the random surface tangent. And what it's doing here, we can here just in objects drag the remesh here and make the strength, for example, like 50, and remove the fall off here, and let's see how affect our text. Let's just make it to 10, and you can have another simulation and another way of exploding or all of the text segments, but we want still keep the shape, the number 3, and for this we just go and add in Cydium another dynamic which is constraint, and we just go to the connection and we say at birth, connect at birth, and click and see now they are more connected. And if I put it like 2%, you can see the shape, the number 3 is like simulated like a cloth, and create some cool motion graphic effects with it. You can play with all of xpFlowfield, add versions, for example turbulence. You can try with turbulence, deactivate it, make 10% the strength and play again, and it will give you another result. You can make the velocity speed like 50 instead of 150. Will give you more slowly, or make it 300. It will make it faster. But now we want to try another dynamic, because now you have particles on the surface and you can use any dynamics and play with it. And any dynamic you put on this particles will affect our wireframes and surfaces. So I will deactivate xpFlowfield, and let's see now. We're back to original one and just come, and now you go to xParticleDynamics and add xpSplash. Splash usually is used for water, but let's use an out-of-box idea and see what's going on here. Yeah, we have a very beautiful, because all of particle will be like affected on this surface, and all of these particles will also affect the motion of particles or segments. And you can now play with it, give direction. For example, go to this splash and turn it to, for example, to 90 here, and you can easily art direct it and which part of it you want to be exploded, and you can play with the xpSplash parameters here, for example the radius or strength or the duration, for example 15 frame, or the distance, and you will have easily a different results just with the few dynamics click and combination of them. You can create a very beautiful countdown for your motion graphics, or you can apply this to any other object, not only to the numbers, and use your imagination and your creativity and see what you can create. Now I will show you how to add some simple field to xpFlowfield, and you have more control on your animation. All we can now start with the plane, and NG and B, we can see the number of segments, and we can add, for example, 50 here and just one. We just want to have on this surface, and you can add to it, but because this is only a tutorial, we will stay with 60. Don't want to make it very heavy, and you can make it a little bit longer. And now you have these segments, and like the beginning of this tutorial, just with the C on keyboard, we turn it to the poly objects and go on the edge, and you have control to select the edges, and Control A, we select all the edge, and Shift C, and we click to edge to spline. And if you double click here, we create for us the spline, and now we don't need this, just we stay with the splines because we wanted give them the dynamics with the xpDynamic tag. We just go right click and extension xpDynamic tag, and we go on the tag rigidity, we make it to 0, and if you play, we have only at the beginning, at the end of the splines, vertex and points, we need the points through all of the lines, and with this reason we just go select the points and select Control A, we select all and right click and add, click on the round, and here we need points, we put it for example 50 and apply, and now we have all of the points because all of these points will turn to the particle. Then if you click again on your xpDynamic and play again, let's choose, and you can see here created for every segment one particle. And if just come here and to emitter properties, add emitter, and we just go to the display and for example put it like a circle field, we can see better in viewport. You can see all of these particles are created, and all of this we can go to selecting gradient parameter and play again, and you can see all of this will be animated by dynamics because we want to use xpFlowfield dynamic. Okay, we can go again here into the display, we don't need to see, and back to the dots. Our scene will be very busy, and to add some xpDynamics, we should go again to xparticles dynamics and use xpFlowfield. But the xpFlowfield is just at the center of the spline, but we want to make it like to the size exactly. If you go to the top view, we can have better view. We can change it to the size exactly like the size of our spline, and maybe you can make it to 200. I think it will be okay, and go to display, and you can change it to the XZ, and you can have a better view of preview of the lines or the arrow or the direction on your spline. And when we back again to the xpFlowfield objects, it's automatically on random and is also on direction. I think, let's see, when we play again, nothing happened. Just go and change direction to velocity, and suddenly the explosion happen. But this is affect all of the splines, and do not keep the shape. We want the like kind of wave on it. For this, we go on select again the tag and structure constraints and click and activate it, and you will see now will keep much better the shape of it. And if you want still be more constrained, you can add another dynamic which xp constraint and put it on birth. You can see will be keep it like will affect only part of what we don't want to have. We want like how it is, and it will be exploded, but in more using field to control, because now we have all of the spline affected by xpFlowfield dynamics and we don't have any control on it. So we select xpFlowfield and go to the field and select, for example, the box field, and we make the size the X and the size of the spline, and select it and coordination, and we can animate it, for example, from here, from minus 570, and we go to the end, and now you can move it, for example, to 400 and add another keyframe, and let's see what will happen. And now we have very cool and beautiful effects that you can use it for simulating clothes, simulating ropes, and you can create lots of beautiful motion graphic works. And if we add now, if you activate constraint, you will see will not be tear apart, but will be like affected like on clothes, like a clothes effect look like. It will be give us totally a different, and you can easily a different results, and you can easily art direct it from here to here. Now I give a simple technique and a tip that you can use in combination of xpDynamic and Mesh Tools Edge spline. At the beginning of tutorial, if we had a plane and here we want to change the plane to the segments, we should come here and with the C on the keyboard, turn the plane to the object mode, polygon object, then here come and select all of it and Shift C and go to the edge and write here edge to spline, and then you will have all of it as a spline. But the problem is, if you want to add to the segment here, the plane is not editable. I mean, it's not possible to add to it because the original object properties, like here the height or width or the segment numbers, is not accessible anymore. So the solution is here. A tip for this tutorial is I just delete everything. I create a new plane here. Here is in Cydium you have Mesh Tools. That Mesh Tools Edge spline is very great tools that will help you for creating a spline from your mesh. And only what you need is just put it as a children of your edge spline. And now if you hide the, look like nothing is happening because the plane is covering the edges. And if you hide it with Alt and double click, then we have our spline here created. And the good news is now you have access to all of the segment here, and you can add to it. For example, height we don't want, we only keep it 1, and the width we can make, for example, 80. And anytime you need more segment, you can easily, during the process of your project, back to it and add to it. So for now we will put the, for example, the height 1000 for our tutorial. And now you can do everything like what we did at the beginning, because they are all spline generated. And you can now come here and go to the extension in Cydium and add xpDynamics to it. And like before, we put the rigidity to 0, and we wanted now to have some cool dynamic motion design, very simple. And we add a very simple sphere here. We can add more segment. So we need a kind of interaction between our sphere and the spline. So we come here to our tag, dynamic tag, and add an emitter like before. And if you play, nothing is happening because we don't have any dynamic here. Then we come here and add our favorite dynamic tools, xpFlowfield. And if you go to the top view, everything great. In other views we can see everything great, and automatically is on a random. And still nothing happened because field is on direction. We go on velocities and play, and when we play again, let's see what is gonna happen. Nothing is still happening. Why? Because like before, we have the same problem. We have only on the beginning the particle created and on the end of it. And this spline to interact with dynamic need particles. To create points on our segments, so we easily go select Mesh Tools Edge spline, we go select it and go to the spline. And here you can change it to subdivided. And as soon as I selected, you see created particles for all of spline and segments, and will be interacted with our dynamic quickly. And as you can see, again is exploded. Then we go here and constraint and structure, and we select this structure constraint, and will be much better. And now we will add another dynamic. This is again our favorite dynamic constraint, and we put a connection on birth and distance. And now let's see, much better. It's like more organic movement, and this is what we want, kind of wavy dancing. And now we go to the xpFlowfield and we'll remove the random, we don't want it. We will use another, which we can play with the surface, because we want to interact with the surface normal, and the surface here will be our sphere, because we want to move our sphere and be interacted with our surface of splines. So we go here and on xpFlowfield, when you select it, here is the object, and we drag our sphere here, and the fall off we remove, and let's see how will be reacted. It's exactly as I expected. So will create for us based on the surface and the normals of our sphere. And also you can test it with surface tangent and remove, deactivate the surface normal, and here drag it and see what is the difference. You can play with all of these dynamics. It's really make a lot of fun. And this is the surface tangent. You can make it, for example, stronger. And let's see again. And let's stay with the surface normal. It's like better with what we wanted, with what the idea we have. But again, still when you play with it, when you move the sphere, there is no interaction between, as you see, there is no interaction between particle and sphere. So for this we need another tag. We select the sphere and right click and go to extension and stadium tag and add collider. So here we have collider, and you can select the normals outside or inside or any. Let's stay on any, and now let's play. I just put it a little bit in contact with our segment, and now let's play and move it, and let's see what is going on. Then we have very simple and beautiful effects or simulation. Then you can use this for any motion graphic design that you found interesting. For idea, you can play with it. You can create new motion graphic ideas out of this simple technique, and you have a lot of freedom to create cool simulations. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you learned some new techniques, and please don't forget to subscribe, and hope to see you on the next tutorial.